For years, Alex Hayes held the conviction that he was the master of his own destiny. Each choice was meticulously considered, every action deliberate. Everything required his consent. But everything shifted the instant a small girl with those recognizable blue eyes gazed up at him and inquired, "Can you take me home?" Initially, it seemed like a peculiar demand from a young one he had yet to encounter. As he gazed into those eerily familiar eyes, a cold realization washed over him. This was more than merely a lost child. This was his child. He had been completely unaware of her existence. Alexander Hayes had devoted his life to the conviction that success stemmed from mastery. He constructed his empire with meticulous care, making certain that nothing ever went unnoticed. Each choice was deliberate, every risk assessed, and every aspect of his existence adhered to a meticulously crafted blueprint. He possessed riches, authority, and sway, believing there was nothing more he could desire. Family had always been absent from the equation. At 36, Alex had persuaded himself that he was not destined for connections. Once, many years back, he had ventured into the realm of love, only to find it culminate in heartbreak. Following that, he immersed himself in his endeavors, honing his persona as a merciless entrepreneur, a figure so dedicated to achievement that he remained impervious to feelings. He convinced himself that he required no one, that his existence was perfectly whole just as it stood. Yet, everything transformed in an instant. That evening began just like all the rest. He had just wrapped up a business dinner at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, sealing a deal that would significantly enhance his company's portfolio. As he emerged into the cool night air, the city lights shimmering on his black Maybach went unnoticed, a luxury he had acquired more for practicality than for ostentation. As he fumbled in his pocket for his car keys, a faint voice called out from behind him. "Pardon me, sir." Alex pivoted, anticipating the presence of a server or a valet. Instead, he discovered himself gazing down at a small girl. She appeared to be no older than 7, her fragile features surrounded by a cascade of thick, dark brown curls. Yet it was the intensity of her gaze that caused him to halt in his tracks. Vivid azure. Remarkably reminiscent. His heart raced as he gazed at her. Her gaze held an unsettling quality, as if she possessed an intimate knowledge of him. The girl paused, adjusting her stance subtly before she spoke once more. "Would you be able to give me a lift home?" Alex blinked, briefly caught off guard, questioning whether he had truly understood her words. A young one, solitary in the darkness, seeking a lift from an unfamiliar face, it was illogical. He quickly surveyed the surroundings, anticipating the sight of a distressed parent rushing toward them, yet the street remained eerily calm. "Where might your parents be?" he inquired, his tone emerging more cutting than he had meant. The girl bowed her head gently, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her coat. "My mom isn't home," she whispered gently. "I have no knowledge of my father." A chill took root in Alex's stomach. He cleared his throat, striving to maintain a steady tone. "Who led you to this place?" She glanced up at him once more, her vivid blue eyes brimming with an emotion he couldn't fully identify. "My caregiver, but she departed. Uncertain of my next move, I chose to bide my time." Alex let out a deep breath, massaging his temple. This was all utterly baffling. "May I ask what your name is?" "Lily," she replied. Lily. The name had a gentle and pure quality, yet it failed to suit the growing discomfort slithering up his spine. He gazed at her once more, absorbing every nuance. Her deep chestnut locks, the gentle arch of her nose, the refined contours of her visage. And those captivating eyes. Those eyes of his. He compelled himself to set the thought aside. Serendipity. That was everything it amounted to. "What is your place of residence?" he inquired. She provided him with an address, and a spark of recognition ignited in his thoughts. The neighborhood may not have been fancy, but it certainly felt secure. That failed to clarify why a child was abandoned in the heart of the city, standing outside a restaurant where she evidently had no place. Alex inhaled deeply. He had the option to leave. This was not his concern. Yet, there was an undeniable quality in the way Lily gazed at him, filled with a serene trust and a hint of anticipation, that rendered her impossible to overlook. He let out a deep breath. Understood. I will escort you back to your place. Lily's face brightened with a sense of relief, as though she had always been certain he would agree. That left him feeling even more disturbed. As he assisted her into the passenger seat, securing her seatbelt, an unsettling sensation lingered in his chest. There were an overwhelming number of questions. There were numerous elements that simply didn't align. As he drove away from the curb, casting a glance at the little girl beside him, he remained unaware that this moment was on the brink of transforming his life entirely. The journey in the car began in silence. Lily perched in the passenger seat, her tiny hands folded neatly in her lap, her legs just shy of touching the edge of the seat. She remained still, composed, unlike most children who would fidget or shift uncomfortably. She remained seated, serene, as though being in a stranger's car was the most ordinary experience imaginable. With determination, Alex clenched the steering wheel, skillfully maneuvering through the bustling city streets. He had never excelled in the company of children, nor had he found a compelling reason to do so. He was not one to soften his tone or change his pace for anyone, especially not for a 7-year-old girl. Yet, there was an elusive quality about her that stirred his thoughts, an emotion he struggled to identify. You really shouldn't talk to strangers, he finally said, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. Lily tilted her head ever so slightly, observing him with her striking blue eyes. I understand. So, what was the reason you requested a ride from me? She paused, her tiny fingers clutching the edge of her coat. Because you appeared secure. Alex nearly chuckled at that. Secure wasn't precisely a term that would come to mind for most when thinking of him. Unyielding, formidable, and highly effective, those were the descriptors he had grown accustomed to hearing. But is it secure? That was an intriguing experience. Did your mother ever advise you against getting into vehicles with unfamiliar people? Indeed, Lily replied with a straightforward tone. So, what prompted you to take that action? She inclined her head, as though the solution was meant to be clear. Since you aren't truly an outsider. That caused him to steal a fleeting glance at her. I believe this is our first encounter. Lily gave a nonchalant shrug. You simply don't recall. A peculiar shiver coursed through him. He redirected his attention to the road, concentrating on the address she had provided. It was just around the corner. He had to take her home, ensure her safety, and then leave this strange encounter in the past. Yet, he couldn't dispel the sense that something was amiss. As they arrived at a quaint, unassuming house nestled in a serene neighborhood, Alex switched off the engine and turned to face her. Welcome to your sanctuary. Lily nodded, yet a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face for the first time. What seems to be the issue? He inquired. She nibbled on her lip. Mother prefers solitude. That left him feeling unsettled. Do you think she'll be upset that you requested a ride from me? She paused before responding, her voice barely above a whisper, perhaps. Alex scowled. There was an intriguing quality to her tone, and the way her fingers curled into the fabric of her coat sent a ripple of tension through him. He had encountered enough individuals throughout his life to recognize when someone was concealing the truth. Would you like me to accompany you to the door? He inquired with caution. Lily paused for a moment, then gave a slight nod. With a resigned sigh, Alex exited the car and made his way around to open the door for her. She ascended, and he trailed behind her along the narrow path that led to the entrance. The house was in decent condition, yet it wasn't quite the type of place he had anticipated. The absence of opulence was palpable, a stark reminder that the woman within had long since departed from his realm. Just as Lily raised her hand to knock, the door unexpectedly swung open. A woman stood there, and Alex felt a tightness in his throat, as if the air had suddenly thickened around him. Rachel. In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped them both. The atmosphere surrounding them was heavy with things left unsaid, laden with memories long hidden away. Rachel's eyes grew wide with disbelief, darting back and forth between Alex and Lily. Her complexion drained as the truth dawned on her. "Alex," she murmured, her voice a mere breath. Lily looked back and forth, her small face a canvas of confusion. "Mother." Alex's whole universe shifted. In that moment, as Rachel stood before him and Lily gazed up at her with anticipation, he finally grasped the reason behind the little girl's striking familiarity. She was a remarkable child. She belonged to him. For an extended pause, Alex found himself frozen in place. His mind was blank. The surroundings faded into obscurity, leaving only the woman before him and the small girl beside him as the sole focus of his attention. The revelation struck him with an intensity that left him breathless. Rachel. Her Rachel. The lady he had once cherished. The woman had slipped away, leaving no trace, as though she had never existed in his world at all. And now, before him, stood the evidence of what she had carried away. His offspring. Lily moved closer to him, acutely aware of the palpable tension in the air. Rachel's complexion was ashen, her fingers clutched the doorframe tightly, as if seeking a lifeline. "Alex," she breathed, her voice a mere whisper. It had been years since he last heard her utter his name, yet the impact remained unchanged. A blend of yearning, frustration, and an underlying essence, something primal and incomplete. "You're familiar with him?" Lily inquired, her eyes darting between them, filled with curiosity. Rachel took a deep breath, then managed to put on a smile. "Darling, please head inside, all right?" Lily paused, her gaze drifting upward to meet Alex's eyes. It was clear to him that she was reluctant to leave, yearning for answers just as intensely as he was. After a brief pause, she gave a nod and entered the house. Rachel glanced over her shoulder at him, her breath coming out in a shaky sigh. "Alex, let me clarify. Elucidate." The word escaped his lips with an unintended edge. He advanced, softening his tone to ensure Lily remained unaware. "Could you clarify how I have a daughter I was unaware of? You can clarify how you vanished from my life, took my child, and never communicated with me." Rachel recoiled, her grip on the doorframe intensifying. "It wasn't that way." "Then describe it to me," he demanded, his jaw tight with tension. After a moment of uncertainty, she took a step back, gesturing for him to enter. Without a moment's hesitation, Alex acted. He trailed behind her into the house, his heart racing in his ears. The living room, though petite, exuded a sense of warmth and comfort, adorned with inviting hues and a playful array of toys strewn about. A residence filled with warmth and togetherness. The residence of his daughter. Lily nestled into the couch, clutching a stuffed animal as she observed them intently. Alex experienced yet another surge of an unnamed emotion. She sought to grasp the unfolding events, mirroring his own quest for understanding. Rachel faced him, encircling herself with her arms. "I never intended for you to discover it in this manner. So, when will that be?" His voice was soft, measured, yet the fury lingered just out of sight, bubbling quietly beneath the calm exterior. "When were you planning to share this with me, Rachel? When she reached the age of 18? When did she tie the knot? Or were you simply planning to keep it to yourself forever?" She shut her eyes briefly, as though collecting her reflections. As she spoke, her voice carried a gentle softness. "I had no idea I was expecting when I walked away, Alex." That brought him to a halt. He gazed at her, absorbing the meaning behind her words. "Excuse me." She gazed up at him, her eyes brimming with an emotion that resembled regret. "At the moment of our separation, I was completely unaware. Weeks later, I discovered the truth, and by that time, it seemed far too late." Your intentions were unmistakable, your focus was solely on your work, and family was not a part of your desires. Alex prepared to voice his disagreement, yet she pressed on. I convinced myself that I was making the right choice, she remarked. I feared that sharing it would create a sense of obligation for you, and that was not my intention. I hoped you wouldn't harbor any resentment towards her, or towards me. I persuaded myself that she would fare better without you. His chest constricted. You shouldn't have made that choice on my behalf. Rachel let out a shaky breath. I understand. The stillness enveloped the distance that separated them. The burden of 4 lost years weighed heavily on Alex's shoulders. He was blessed with a daughter. A young girl who drifted off to sleep each night, unaware of his presence in her world. A young girl raised in the absence of a father, a consequence of Rachel's decision, one that she had no authority to make. Despite his anger, he couldn't ignore the guilt reflected in her eyes. The manner in which she carried herself, the tremor in her voice, revealed her lack of pride in her actions. Fear had gripped her. Yet, that did not alter the reality of all that he had overlooked. He pivoted, casting his gaze upon Lily. She observed him intently, examining him with the same subtle intrigue she had displayed in the car. She was completely unaware of the extent of the transformation that had just occurred. So much has just come to light. I want to know her, Alex said finally, his voice steady yet composed. I desire to be a part of her life. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Alex. He shook his head in disbelief. You've spent 4 years nurturing her by yourself. However, she is my daughter as well. And I shall not turn my back now that I am aware of her presence. Rachel paused, her uncertainty evident, before finally giving a slow nod. Understood. Alex exhaled, a breath he hadn't known he was keeping in. This was not going to be a simple task. He had lost too much time, and there was no way to reclaim it. However, he was determined not to let that hinder his progress. For the first time in his life, something took precedence over his career. He was determined not to let her slip away. The following days passed in a haze for Alex. His whole existence had transformed, yet he was supposed to carry on as if everything remained the same. Conversations, discussions, agreements, none of it held significance any longer. In every spare moment, his mind wandered back to the little girl with the sparkling blue eyes who had, without realizing it, stepped into his world and completely transformed it. Lily was his beloved daughter. His very essence. For 4 years, her existence had remained a mystery to him. The weight of that reality pressed down on him, far beyond what he could articulate. He had devoted years to pursuing success, convinced he held the reins of it all, but this? This served as evidence of all that had eluded his grasp. Rachel had consented to allow him to see Lily, yet she had emphasized that it would require patience. He couldn't simply stroll into her world and anticipate that she would instantly grasp the essence of who he was. After 4 years without a father, she found herself needing to gradually embrace the concept of having one in her life. It was exasperating, yet Alex grasped the situation. He had no intention of forcing his presence and overpowering her. Yet he had no intention of vanishing, either. When Rachel reached out to him later that week, inviting him to come by and spend some time with Lily, he promptly cleared his entire schedule. This was the only thing that truly counted. Upon reaching Rachel's residence, he paused briefly, contemplating before he rapped on the door. The door creaked open moments later, revealing Rachel, her expression a mix of hesitation and warmth. She mentioned she's in the backyard, gracefully stepping aside to allow him entry. As Alex strolled through the house, he absorbed the charm of the small yet inviting space. Everywhere you looked, there were hints of Lily's presence, crayon drawings adorning the fridge, a small pair of sneakers waiting by the door, and a bookshelf brimming with vibrant storybooks. It was a sanctuary. A dwelling that had witnessed his daughter's upbringing in his absence. As he emerged into the open air, his eyes found her right away. Lily sat on the grass, meticulously arranging a set of building blocks, stacking them with precision, one atop the other. She was still unaware of his presence. Rachel took a moment to clear her throat. "Lily, dear. A visitor has arrived to meet you." Lily raised her gaze, her cerulean eyes locking onto his. For a brief instant, she fixed her gaze on him, as if she were sifting through her memories, attempting to recall where their paths had crossed previously. Then, a spark of understanding illuminated her expression. "You're the guy from the car," she stated plainly. Alex swallowed hard, managing to conjure a faint smile. "Indeed. That was I." She observed him for a brief moment, then turned her gaze towards Rachel. "What brings him here?" Rachel knelt beside her, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Recall when I mentioned that families can hold unexpected revelations?" Lily gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Well," Rachel said softly, "Alex is a unique kind of surprise." "He is." She paused for a moment, then lifted her gaze to Alex, allowing him the opportunity to express it himself. Alex inhaled deeply and lowered himself to meet her gaze. "Lily," he said with a measured tone, "I've just uncovered something truly significant. A realization I wish I had come to much earlier." Lily paused, her eyes wide with anticipation. "I'm your father," he murmured gently. Her delicate brows knitted together. She paused, her silence lingering, defying the response he had dreaded. She remained composed, standing her ground. She simply gazed at him, her young mind processing the words carefully. After a brief pause, she inclined her head. "However, I am not familiar with you." The words struck with intensity, yet he had anticipated their arrival. He acknowledged it, "I know. And that's precisely why I wish to share moments with you. Allow me to introduce myself." Lily cast another glance at Rachel, who responded with a reassuring nod. Gradually, Lily pivoted to face Alex. "In what way?" Alex beamed with delight. "Indeed. I can assist you with those obstacles. If you wish." Lily observed him intently for a moment, then eventually offered a subtle nod. "Understood." It may have been small, yet it marked the beginning. He settled into the grass next to her, taking care not to disturb her carefully constructed tower of blocks. Without uttering a single word, she passed him one, her gaze fixed on his reaction. He set it atop the pile, casting a quick glance her way to gauge if he had executed it correctly. Lily examined his work, then gave a nod of approval. "Decent enough." Alex released a soft laugh, feeling a wave of relief that she hadn't entirely closed him off. Rachel observed from a short distance, her arms folded tightly as if preparing for an impending event. Yet, there was an additional nuance in her expression, a gentler quality, an almost hopeful glimmer. A considerable journey lay ahead of them. For the first time, Alex genuinely felt that they could reach their destination. In the weeks that followed, Alex embarked on an unprecedented journey, reshaping his entire existence for another person. His days, once filled with relentless meetings, intense negotiations, and frequent business trips, were now organized around visits with Lily. He was indifferent to whether his assistants were puzzled by his unexpected availability in the afternoons or if his colleagues reacted with surprise at his newfound flexibility. Everything was inconsequential. The initial visits were cautious. Lily maintained a courteous demeanor, yet remained distant, regarding him more as a visitor than as someone familiar. She observed him with a careful eye, as if attempting to unravel the true nature of his character. He found it hard to hold her accountable. He was an unfamiliar figure to her, a man who had emerged from the shadows and asserted that he was her father. Trust was not a commodity to be demanded, he understood that it had to be cultivated through genuine effort. He began with modest steps, taking cues from her guidance. As she picked up her drawing tools, he settled next to her, crayon clutched in his hand, despite being completely unsure of his artistic abilities. As she longed to play in the open air, he pursued her across the yard, allowing her to triumph each time. One evening, when she requested a bedtime story, a surprise to him, he settled beside her bed, his voice gentler than normal as he turned page after page. Rachel observed everything with keen attention. She remained close, always present to ensure Lily felt secure, yet never intruding. She clearly remained uncertain about his presence in their lives, and Alex understood her hesitation completely. After 4 long years away, he was determined to reclaim the moments he had missed. One afternoon, while they were at the kitchen table immersed in their coloring, Lily unexpectedly broke the silence, her gaze fixed on her paper. "Will you be departing?" Alex felt a tightness in their chest. He placed his crayon aside, intently observing her expression. "What makes you believe I would?" She nonchalantly shrugged, her attention unwavering from the intricate details of her drawing. "Individuals depart." He let out a slow breath, grasping more in that instant than she likely intended to disclose. She had experienced disappointment in the past. Perhaps not by Rachel, but by others. Perhaps she had heard that individuals would remain, only to vanish later on. Perhaps she feared he might follow suit. He leaned in a bit, ensuring she could catch the confidence in his tone. "I'm here to stay, Lily." She finally raised her gaze to him, her vivid blue eyes scanning his features as if weighing the trustworthiness of his words. "Do you truly promise?" Though it appeared to be a straightforward inquiry, Alex understood its profound significance. He gave a slight nod. "I assure you." Lily observed him for a moment longer before giving a subtle nod to herself, as though she were cataloguing his response for future reference. In that moment, she casually grabbed another crayon and resumed coloring, completely unfazed by the weight of her previous question that had almost shattered him. As the evening unfolded and he prepared to depart, Rachel accompanied him to the entrance. Initially, she remained silent, her arms folded, her face betraying no emotion. "She admitted that she has feelings for you." Alex turned his gaze toward the living room, where Lily's most recent drawing rested on the table, depicting the two of them, hand in hand. He confessed that he shares her feelings as well. Rachel paused, contemplating her next words. "I was afraid to let you in," she whispered gently. "I remain so." He pivoted to meet her gaze completely, feeling the gravity of her words. "I understand that. Yet, I stand present. And I'm here to stay." Rachel nodded slowly, as if she was finally granting herself the permission to trust his words. The start was far from flawless. It was quite a challenge. Yet, it was genuine. In that moment, Alex realized he possessed a cause that ignited his determination. Alex began to understand that fatherhood wasn't defined by grand gestures or dramatic moments. It was about being present, time and time again, despite the challenges, despite the chaos. It revolved around steadfastness, demonstrating, through deeds rather than mere talk, that he was here to stay. "Each encounter with Lily seemed to bring me closer to progress." Initially, she approached him with caution, regarding him as a stranger intruding upon her realm. Yet, as time went on, that uncertainty diminished. With an enthusiastic grin, she welcomed him at the door, grasping his hand and leading him eagerly toward the day's adventure. She began to inquire about various details, seemingly trivial yet profoundly significant to him. What color did he like the most? Was he fond of ice cream? Had he ever encountered a dolphin? She posed her questions with a childlike wonder, an insatiable curiosity that seemed boundless, yet Alex understood the deeper intent behind her inquiries. She was discovering him, assembling the fragments slowly, seeking to grasp his essence and determine if he was someone worthy of her trust. One afternoon, Rachel inquired if he would like to collect Lily from preschool. It was an uncomplicated ask, something any caregiver would fulfill without hesitation. Yet for Alex, it held immense significance. It signified her trust in him, allowing him to embrace something ordinary, something genuine. He stepped into the quaint school, feeling more like an outsider than he ever had in a tense corporate gathering. Groups of parents gathered, engaged in conversation as they awaited the arrival of their kids. Alex felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him, yet before he could dwell on it, the doors swung open, and a torrent of children poured out. Lily stood out effortlessly, her dark brown curls dancing with each movement as she surveyed the crowd. The moment she spotted him, her whole expression brightened, and she dashed toward him with unrestrained enthusiasm. "Father," she exclaimed. The words halted him in his path. She had never referred to him in that way before. His heart raced as she approached, wrapping her arms around his waist with unwavering confidence. He embraced her in return, taken aback and filled with emotion, yet more convinced than ever that this was precisely where he belonged. "How was your day?" he inquired, his tone harsher than he meant it to be. Lily drew back, her head bobbing with excitement. "I created a drawing for you." She delved into her backpack and retrieved a wrinkled piece of paper, unfolding it with a sense of pride that only a child could possess. It depicted the two of them, intertwined, hand in hand. For the first time, beneath his stick figure, she had inscribed a single word. "Father." He took a deep breath, struggling to maintain his composure. He expressed his affection with sincerity, every word resonating with genuine feeling. That evening, after saying goodbye to Lily, Rachel hesitated by the door, taking her time more than she typically would. She had laid her eyes upon the drawing. She had witnessed the joy radiating from Lily when she returned home. "She referred to you as Daddy today," Rachel said gently. Alex nodded, the burden still heavy upon him. Indeed, she did." Rachel paused, uncertainty flickering as she met his gaze. "It seems you're quite stationary, aren't you?" Alex let out a breath, aware that her inquiry extended beyond just Lily. She inquired about them, about the past, about whether he could truly be the man she and their daughter required. "No," he said, his voice unwavering. "I am not." Rachel observed him intently for a while, then gave a nod. "Understood." It was merely a single word, yet he understood it carried profound significance. They had not arrived yet. There remained matters to navigate, moments that could not be altered. For the first time, it seemed as though they had finally found their way. And Alex was determined to hold on tight. Alex was taken aback by the transformation in his life, a realization that struck him one evening as he found himself immersed in a routine that felt entirely foreign. He sat at the quaint dining table in Rachel's kitchen, assisting Lily in cutting out paper hearts for an art project. The suit jacket hung casually over the back of a chair, sleeves rolled up, while fragments of red and pink paper lay strewn across the table. A few months back, he would have found himself in his office, poring over reports or engaged in a late-night business call. Yet here he was, enveloped in a cozy, familiar atmosphere, filled with laughter and the enticing aroma of freshly made pasta. Lily chuckled softly as she lifted one of the hearts high. It was uneven, yet she smiled at it as if it were a work of art. "Text, this is for you," she declared, placing it gently in his hand. Alex gazed at the lopsided heart, a sensation of constriction enveloping his chest. It was merely a tiny slip of paper, yet it held immense significance. "Thank you, my dear," he said, carefully placing it into his pocket. Rachel, perched against the counter, observed them with a gentle shake of her head and a soft smile gracing her lips. "She has been discussing this all week long. It seems like Valentine's Day is being celebrated with the fervor of a national holiday in her eyes." Lily inhaled sharply, her surprise evident. "Indeed, it is." Alex let out a soft laugh, yet his thoughts remained fixated on Rachel. Tonight, she appeared transformed, shedding her usual defenses and embracing a sense of comfort. He couldn't pinpoint the moment it began, but her gaze no longer held the weight of suspicion as it once had. Rather than anticipating his downfall, she appeared to embrace the reality of his presence in her life. As the night deepened and Lily drifted into slumber, Alex lent a hand to Rachel in tidying up. It had turned into a routine, lingering a bit more, ensuring that everything was in order before he departed. Rachel dried a plate and remarked, "She truly cherished the moments spent with you." Alex locked eyes with her, placing the towel he had been using aside. "Spending time with her brings me so much joy." Rachel paused briefly before continuing her conversation. "You have a remarkable way with her." It transcended mere flattery. It was a recognition. An acknowledgement of his transformation. He confessed that he was making an effort. "I understand that I can't reclaim the moments I've missed, but my desire is to be the father she truly deserves." Rachel observed him intently for a prolonged moment. "You already are." The word struck him with an intensity he hadn't anticipated. He had dedicated countless hours to demonstrating his worth, to Rachel, to Lily, and even to his own reflection, unaware that he had already transformed into the very person he aspired to be. With a weary sigh, Rachel tucked the final dish away in the cabinet. "You know, I would often envision this," she said softly. "Imagine how different life could have been. If only we had come to this realization earlier." Alex took a deep breath, moving in closer. "The past is unchangeable, Rachel. Yet, we can unravel what lies ahead." She gazed at him, her expression a mystery waiting to be unraveled. "What vision do you have for the future?" He acted without a moment's pause. "Me. Lily. We." Rachel exhaled gently, and for the first time, a sense of calm replaced the fear in her eyes. For an extended period, he had been striving to demonstrate his value in Lily's world. Yet, in that moment, as he gazed at the woman he had always held in his heart, a new understanding dawned upon him. He was engaged in a battle that transcended his love for his daughter. He was battling for their family. For the first time, it seemed as though victory was within his grasp. Alex devoted his whole existence to the pursuit of success, convinced that riches and influence were the sole measures of worth. As he lounged on the couch in Rachel's living room, with Lily nestled beside him, her tiny head gently resting against his arm as she slipped into slumber, it dawned on him that he had been pursuing the wrong aspirations all this time. Months had passed since that fateful night outside Rachel's house, when he first uncovered the truth. It had been months since his meticulously ordered life was turned on its head by a small girl with blue eyes that mirrored his own. Now, he found it impossible to envision his existence without her. He transformed from a mere stranger into the person Lily rushed to the moment she laid eyes on him. From a stranger to the one she relied on to comfort her as she settled in for the night during his late visits. From a man who had spent years doubting his destiny as a father to someone who now embraced the truth that he was always meant for this role. Rachel entered from the kitchen, hands dried on a dish towel, and offered a gentle smile at the sight of Lily peacefully resting against him. "She's starting to feel at ease around you." Alex gazed at the little girl, a sense of warmth blossoming within him. "Indeed," he remarked, his tone softer than normal. "She certainly is." Rachel paused briefly, contemplating her decision, before finally taking a seat beside him on the opposite end of the couch. An abundance of unsaid words lingered in the air, a rich tapestry of shared history waiting to be unraveled. Yet, the gap that once separated them had narrowed. The barriers she had constructed were not as formidable as they once were. "You were right, you know," she said in a gentle tone. Alex shifted his gaze in her direction. "Concerning what topic?" She let out a slow breath, her fingers mindlessly gliding over the texture of the couch fabric. "Regarding my decision to remove the option from you. Regarding the matter of not informing you about Lily." Alex took a moment before replying. Several months back, his response could have been quite different. His anger may have fueled the dialogue, bringing to light all that he had missed and everything he had lost. However, following his time with Lily and reflecting on Rachel's upbringing of her, along with the fear and uncertainty she must have experienced, he found himself unwilling to dwell on past disputes. He simply sought to progress. "I wish I had realized this earlier," he confessed. "Yet, I find myself present at this moment." That is what truly holds significance. Rachel locked eyes with him, probing his expression for any hint of understanding. After a lengthy silence, she finally gave a nod. "You are," she murmured, almost to herself. "You truly are." A tranquil hush enveloped them, yet it held no discomfort. The silence enveloped them, a profound stillness that spoke volumes, as if the weight of unspoken truths lingered in the air, rendering words superfluous. Lily stirred slightly against him, shifting before settling once more, and Alex instinctively placed a gentle hand on her back, providing a steadying presence. Rachel observed the motion, an enigmatic glimmer dancing in her gaze. "She whispered that she loves you." Alex swallowed hard, the gravity of those words sinking heavily within him. "I adore her as well." Rachel nodded deliberately, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that spoke volumes. She then reached for a blanket, gently draping it over Lily's petite form. Alex stood at the precipice of uncertainty, unaware of the unfolding events that lay ahead. He was uncertain about the time it would require for Rachel to completely place her trust in him once more, or what the future held for the three of them. As he sat there, with his daughter peacefully resting against him and Rachel by his side, a singular truth settled in his mind. He remained firmly in place. This was not merely a fleeting instance in his existence. This felt like home. The conclusion of this narrative is profoundly fulfilling as it emphasizes genuine emotional development, redemption, and the strength found in second chances. Alex begins as a man who thinks he possesses it all, wealth, power, and control, but in truth, his existence is lacking. His discovery of Lily transcends the mere fact of having a daughter, it unveils the profound truth that success holds little value without the warmth of love, the bonds of connection, and the essence of family. The strength of this conclusion lies in its authenticity. Rebuilding trust takes time and patience. Rachel holds back her forgiveness, while Lily remains hesitant to embrace him as her father. Instead, Alex must demonstrate his worth through deeds, not mere statements. He must arrive, engage, and establish his significance in their lives. In the end, he doesn't merely assert the title of father, he embodies it, wholeheartedly and entirely. Rachel's journey holds equal significance. For years, she held on to the conviction that distancing Alex was a way to shield Lily, yet beneath that resolve lay a heavy burden of guilt and uncertainty. Witnessing Alex take the initiative, not out of obligation but from genuine desire, empowers her to release the burdens of the past and embrace the possibility of a future where they can truly be a family. The concluding scene, where Alex finds himself with Lily peacefully resting against him and Rachel calmly acknowledging his presence, is beautifully understated. It's a subtle acknowledgement, a measured unfolding of feelings. It's serene, consistent, and rich with unvoiced connection. It illustrates that recovery requires patience, yet when affection is genuine, it ultimately prevails. This narrative transcends mere unexpected fatherhood, it delves into the journey of discovering a sense of belonging in the most surprising of places. Ultimately, that is what imbues it with genuine significance.